what you wear.
Okay, hello to everyone. Welcome to our sixth webinar masterclass here at the Havlift Group. Today we have the heart of planning your project with Chris Croft. I would like I would like to say the hello from the XCOM. I am Murilo Caldana. I am the president of the group, and we have all here our XCOM members ready to support you. We would like also to welcome all of our THLG members as well as our special customers during the session today. Well, the webinar will last for approximately 90 minutes. In case you have any issue, you can contact Andreas. He will be on the chat. And please make sure you are mute during the webinar. A global group of local professionals, that's what we are. So we are a not-for-profit group cooperating worldwide on heavy lift projects. And our motto is power in unity. So we cooperate worldwide on projects and on large-scale industrial projects, crane operations, machinery installations, vessel chartering, port operations, oversized road transportation, engineering, survey, aircraft charters, and barge operations. So we would like to be your one-stop shop. That's where we are. So we have around 60 members all over the world. And those are some of the projects we have handled over the past years. Just to give some idea of what exactly we do. So in different regions, barge, heavy vessels, heavy transportation, and heavy lift in different segments. So thanks for coming again, and I hope you have a great webinar training. So I would like to pass my words to Chris Croft and have a good training. Thank you.
Thank you, Murilo. And hi, everybody. It's really good to see you all there. If you haven't got your camera on, I like it if you have your cameras on, because it means I can really, feel that you're out there. But obviously, if you're wearing something strange, you may not want to have your camera on, but it's kind of nice to be able to see people. So yes, we've got 90 minutes to do project management. You can actually do a 2-year diploma in project management. And we've only got 90 minutes, but I'm going to pick what I've called the heart of the subject. If you understand this, then you understand really the essence of project management. And we're going to do 2 parts, really. The heart, I think, divides into the 2 parts of kind of a flow diagram, a network diagram, and then a thing called a Gantt chart. And I'm going to tell you about both of those and also how they fit together. And even people who know quite a lot about project management often don't realize that you need both of these things. So I'm going to show you both. In fact, we'll do a real example of both. And then that should allow you to understand it. But just before I start on that, I'm just going to show you what the whole subject looks like. So I'm just going to share my screen a moment. Yeah, so this is what the whole of project management looks like. And just a bit of background. By the way, can you see my 12 steps? Is that all right? Is that on the screen? Yep. I've learned the hard way, always worth checking. This is the PMI process. That's the Project Management Institute. So they're the sort of official worldwide body who look after project management. And this is their process. And they've been writing down how to do projects for the last 100 years in a book, which they call the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or PMBOK. In fact, I can put PMBOK there. And the problem with the Project Management Body of Knowledge is it's got bigger and bigger and bigger over the last 100 years. And it's now so big that you can't really read it. No one's got time to read PMBOK. So what I've done is I've boiled it down into just the basic bits that you need to know. If you're a busy manager, you've maybe got several projects on the go, this is what you need to know. And this is the PMBOK process. Okay, now there are a couple of other things out there. There's something called Prince2, which is different. I don't particularly like Prince 2. I think it's too many forms have to be filled in, too bureaucratic. There's also something called Agile, which is really for smaller kind of software projects where they don't quite know what's going to happen next. It's like sort of exploring a maze. So with Agile, you don't really have an overall plan. But we're going to look at PMBOK today because that's what people use for big physical projects, like the kind of things that you get involved in. And this is where we want to have a plan for the whole project from the start. And we want to know what we're going to do when. We want to make sure we deliver it on time and on budget. So we're going to deliver difficult projects on time and on budget. And to do that, I've got this 12-step process, which is based on the project management body of knowledge. And you could see step 1 is to define the project clearly. What is it? What exactly does the customer want? And you can imagine there'll be all sorts of problems where you have misunderstandings with the customer. And even just if you're building a hospital, the customer said, well, I thought we were going to get a car park as well. And you go, no, the car park wasn't included. You know, and just little details like that are so easy to forget. So step 1 is to define the project. And then the planning happens. And most of project management is planning. You can see steps 2 to 8 are all about planning. And so planning, basically, you get a list of all the tasks. What does your project consist of? Already, this is difficult because how do we make sure we don't forget any? We probably will forget some. We probably have to put a safety margin in to allow for that. So we list the tasks, then we put them in order. And this is one of the parts I'm going to do in detail with you today. So I'm going to make that bold. So we're going to look at how do you plan the running order of the tasks. And sometimes when you do this, you realize you've missed some and you can add some in at that stage. Then you put a bit of a safety margin into your plan. I might have time to briefly talk about that. You then look at, do we need to speed the plan up? Because sometimes when you work it out, it comes to too big a number. And you think, well, we're going to have to speed the plan up, maybe throw extra money at it or extra people, or maybe reduce the quality slightly, which is always bad, but it's an option. But once you've made sure you're happy with your plan, you then can produce a Gantt chart. And that's the other part that I want to talk about. And I think these 2 parts are the heart of project management, really. They're the key to the whole subject. And once you have your Gantt chart, you can then calculate your resource requirements. How many people will we need? And what other resources will we need? So I'm going to show you that because that's part of Gantt charts. And then the last bit of planning, which I'm not going to talk about today, is risk. Because once you have your plan, you can then think, what could possibly go wrong? You know, what if it rains really heavily while we're trying to move this huge object? You know, what if there's the road is blocked, or, you know, what if it won't get around the corner, and all the risks. And of course, we know about risks because they're usually things that have happened before. You know, the reason you would get you know, somebody really good to do a job for you is because they've done it lots of times before. But so risk is the last part of planning. And then once you've finished your plan and decided, yes, we definitely like the plan, we're definitely going to do the project, we then start doing it. And you can see here, we monitor the progress by coloring in the Gantt chart. So I'm going to tell you a bit about that as well. So really, I'm covering this as well. And I'm covering this today. You also can monitor the cost as the project carries on. And then usually you have to readjust your plan because something will change during your project. So there's usually an element of adapting to events. And then at the end, the last step is to review and to think, what have we learned? And most people don't do this. Most people, they either think the project went quite well and we don't need to review it because it was fine, or they think the project went quite badly and we don't want to review it because we don't want to think about it anymore. Let's just forget it. So usually people don't do reviews. Also, the problem is time. Often there's not enough time to review a project. So they just think, right, finished, next. And they go on to their next project, which is a pity. Because of course, if we did the review, we could learn from our mistakes and not make the same mistakes next time. And even if the project went well, we could still ask, how can we do it better? So all of these steps are good, but we've only got 90 minutes. And I've decided to home in on number 3 and then number 6, which also includes 7 and 9. Okay, so that's the sort of context of what we're doing. And you can read books about how to review, and you can read books about listing the tasks, but this one is very difficult to get from a book. You know, really, the only way to understand it is to really do it. And so I think that's why this is an important one for me to choose. So I'm planning we'll spend about probably half an hour looking at this, and then about half an hour, maybe 3/4, looking at Gantt charts. Okay, so let's just wade in. Let's imagine we've got the tasks, and let's think about how we would plan the running order. So I want to, first of all, get you just to imagine that you, let's say that you're going to set up a distribution center in a foreign country. Okay, now this is based on a real a real friend of mine who does this project for real every now and then. And what they do is they actually make rat poison and cockroach killer in America in a factory. Okay, and his job is to sell as much poison to Eastern Europe as possible. Now, you may say, well, why is this relevant to me? But I want to pick a project that you may not know about, because the whole point about project management is, can we plan something that we've never done before? So I've picked an example that's a little bit different to what you do, I hope. So let's imagine that you're making poison in a factory in America, and your job is to sell as much as you can to Eastern Europe. And your boss says, I've been looking at the figures for 2025, and they're not good enough. You're not selling enough. You're not planning to sell enough in 2025. I want you to open up in a new country as soon as you can, because the way it works is they have a factory in America, and then they have a distribution center in each country. And in the distribution center, they have an office where people are typing, you know, they have stock control and they're answering the phone. And then they have a warehouse with lots of pallets and forklift trucks and accidents and things like that. Okay, so your boss says, how long will it take to get up and running in a new country? Now, you could just guess and say, I don't know, maybe a year, but it'd be quite nice to have a plan to know that we were right. And especially when the boss says a whole year, why can't you do it quicker? You need to have a plan where you say, well, this is why it will take that amount of time. So we need to make sure that we are actually right and we're not just guessing. So how do we do that? So you remember from just now, step 2 is to make a list of tasks. So I've made a list of tasks here. So I think we're going to have to buy a site. We'll have to buy a site, which means finding it, and we'll have to get some furniture, and we'll have to do some advertising, and we have to decide which country, of course. And then we've got to buy the furniture, install it, then we can open. But we might need to get a trade permit, permission to sell, and then we'll probably have to modify the building a little bit, put a mezzanine floor in or something like that. And then, of course, we're going to need staff and a manager. So this is my list of tasks that I've made. So the question is, how long will this project take based on these tasks? Okay, so you can see from here, that's the list of tasks. So setting up a distribution center in a foreign country, how long will it take? So the way to do this is to do what's called a network diagram. And I'm going to show you that now, and I'm going to get you to help me do it. So what I've done is I've put each of these, can you see I've put each one of these onto a Post-it note. And if you were doing this in real life, you could actually use real Post-it notes. You could do that. And I actually think it is best. I know Post-it notes seem very low tech, but actually it's really good just to be able to move them around, you know, on a whiteboard, just move your Post-it notes around. But obviously I'm in a different country to you. So at the moment we're having to do this over a computer. And it might be that you're planning a project with lots of people who are in different offices within a country, or perhaps in different countries, in which case you can do it exactly the way I'm doing it. And we are, we're just using PowerPoint on here. You can get more fancy versions of this, but I just think PowerPoint is fine, and everybody's got PowerPoint. Everyone knows how to use PowerPoint, so why not do that? So each one of these post-its is just, you know, it's just a rectangle. I've put a little shadow on it to make it look a bit more real. Okay, so I've just done each one, and for the sake of time, I've put an estimate on each one of how many weeks I think it will take. So I've said it will take 4 weeks to find a site. Now, I don't know if that's real, but this is just an example anyway. We're just trying out a method, aren't we? So I've just put some numbers on, and just for the sake of trying it. And you can put the numbers on either before you start moving the post-its around or after, whichever you prefer. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to get you to help me, is we're going to put them in order from the left-hand side, which I think it starts with the country, all the way across to the right-hand side, which is being open for business. And we're just going to join them up with arrows like this. So I'm going to get you to help me. Okay. And I'm just going to pick people who I can see, and we'll see. So I'm going to start with Murilo. There he is. So would you mind if I think I have to ask you, so would you mind unmuting and tell me which post-it do you want me to put on? Once we've got the country, what do you think we should do first?
Find a site, maybe?
Yeah, I think finding a site is good. I'm going to put that there. There we are. You can relax again now, Murillo. I'm going to ask Alessio next. Alessio Bianchi. Then I'm going to ask Colin Dabreo. So Colin can start to get ready. So Alessio, what shall I put on next? And by the way, you can undo the work of the previous person if you want. If you want to say Murillo was just wrong and that's just not meant to be there, you can say that. Although I think he is right, actually. So Alessio, what shall I put on next?
I would get a trade permit then.
Okay. And do you want to get the permit after you found the site, or do you want to get it at the same time as looking for the site?
Same time.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice. Because the permit doesn't require a site. It's just permission to sell poison in their country. Okay, so I'm going on to Colin next, and then Elizabeth. So Colin, what shall I put on next?
I would recruit a local manager.
Oh, I like it. And okay, so the manager, are you going to get the manager as soon as you got the country, or even before the site? Could they help get the permit, or are you going to wait till you got the permit and then get the manager? When do you want to get the manager?
I would do that as soon as I identify a country.
Oh, right back here then. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a nice bit of empowerment, because then the manager can do all the work, can't they? Which is ideally what we want. So, but you can already see that there isn't one right answer for this. You know, there's no rule that says you must have a permit before a manager. You can choose, because clearly if we don't get the permit, we have to get rid of the manager again. But on the other hand, the manager's maybe going to help us to get the permit. So project management isn't about one right answer. It's about coming up with a plan that you are happy with, and then show it to everybody else. If everybody's happy, or most people are happy, then we do it. Okay, it's just about agreeing the best plan. So I like this plan so far. So right, we've got Elizabeth next. After Elizabeth, I'm going to ask Mladen next, and then Franco. So I hope that's okay. I've missed out Maria. Well, I'll come back to Maria in a minute. So Elizabeth, what shall I put on next?
I would say purchase the site, because after you find it, you need to buy it and then start doing all the work.
Yeah, I agree. So you definitely, and by the way, what these arrows really mean is not you find it and then you buy it. It's actually you can't buy it until you've found it. That's what that's the official definition of the arrows. You can't do this one till you've done. You can't buy it till you find it, which I think is true. I like it. Okay, so that was easy. We're going to go Mladen, then Franco, then Maria. So Mladen, what should I put on next? Oh, I've got to hang on. I got to unmute you, I think. Or can you unmute? Do you have to press a button?
Yes,
it won't take long.
Yep.
Yeah,
Then modify the buildings.
modify the buildings. Yeah, I think once you've bought it, you can definitely modify them. Like that. By the way, the next person or future people, you may want to put on just an arrow. If you don't want to put a post-it on, maybe there's an extra arrow or two we need to add, but I'll leave you to think about that. So it's Franco next and then Maria. So Franco, if you want to unmute and let's get another post-it on here. Oh, you're still muted.
Advertise the product, actually.
Oh, I can hear you now. I can hear. Yeah, Franco Riboncini. Are you gonna unmute?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
brilliant.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Fire away.
Find local suppliers of furniture.
Okay. Now, should we do that? Is that going to be after we've modified the building or after we've
After modify building?
Or because we could look for, I think we could look for them earlier.
No, at the same time, probably.
Yeah. Could we look for them
Yeah.
while we're buying the site, or do you think we should wait till we've bought it before we look for suppliers? Or could the manager even do it back here?
Before to modify building.
Yeah. What? So here?
Well, at the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So we're saying once we found the site, we can buy it, and we can also start looking for furniture suppliers like that. I like it. Yes. Oh, I can't remember who we got next. I think we're on. Is it Maria next? Or have we had Alessio? I can't remember.
I would love to help, but I'm in administration, and if you're in a project and you are trying to use administration, you are in a big trouble. So I think maybe project managers are better to be used at this point.
Oh, but you can do it though. Anyone can do this. Yeah, you can do it. What should we do next though? I mean, what about, should we buy the furniture next?
Not a bad choice.
I think so. And where will we put that? What does it come after? I think maybe, do you think it comes after finding the suppliers of the furniture?
Yes, of course. You have to have the suppliers first.
Yeah. Yes. So every box has to have one arrow in and one arrow out, apart from obviously the start and the finish. But some boxes can have 2 arrows coming out or more, or 2 arrows or 3 arrows coming in. But every box must have at least 1 arrow coming in and out. So this one will have to go somewhere. And I think it's quite easy. So I'm going to go for Luciana next. If I can just, yeah, Luciana, help me with my next one. I haven't got many more to go now.
Okay. I think we should recruit local staff.
Recruit staff. Yeah. Now, when should we do that? What does it come after? Do we need the permit maybe? Or could the manager do it straight away after the manager? Or should we wait till we got the permit? I think we need to wait.
I think after the manager.
Or after where?
After you recruit local manager.
Yeah, after the manager. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to put a big long arrow like that. So as soon as we got the manager, they could actually start recruiting staff. Because this is going to take a bit of time, isn't it? While we're sorting the buildings out, we could be interviewing people. It's true. Okay, I like it. I'm going to go to Ragan Watson next, if I may. I'm just going in the order that I can see you on screen, by the way. There's nothing personal in my choosing. Ragan, what shall I put? What shall I put on next?
After you recruit local staff, could you go ahead and advertising your product? Start drumming up interest to start getting orders queued up.
Do you think advertising depends on the staff, or do you think
possibly not? If the product's already created, you don't necessarily need staff. You could probably put the product after you get your permit to do so.
I think, I mean, in theory, as soon as you had your country, you could do it, but it might be illegal. So I think probably we should wait for the permit. I agree. I think you're right. I think it depends on the permit. Could be wrong. We're just trying out a method here, aren't we? Okay, so I'm going to go to Deekshant now. You got a pretty easy one, haven't you, really? Which is, where's this going to go?
Installing the furniture and fitting after we purchase the same and modify the building.
Oh, yeah, good point. Actually, I nearly forgot that. So installing, we need to have bought it, but we also need the building to be ready, don't we? So they both go into there. Now, apart from that, obviously everything must go somewhere, but advertising goes to opening, doesn't it? Because we can't open till we've done some advertising. And we can't open till we've got the furniture. And we can't open till we've got the staff. Now, I just want to move this just to make it a bit neater, really. It's still not going to be, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that down to there. And I'm going to make this one, I'm going to have 2 arrows, sort of like this. Right. Oh, I better save this. It'll be terrible if something happened to it. Right. So I think we've mostly got that done now. I want to ask, actually, does anybody want to put in the comments, because we've got a lot of people here, if we just open up the comments, I think something else depends on the permit apart from just advertising. So would anybody else like to, let me just open up the chat. If you just go to the chat and just put in there, what do you think also depends on the permit? Which of these things would you not do until you've got the permit? Recruit staff. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Maybe we should wait till we got the permit. I definitely wouldn't buy the site without the permit. What do other people think about staff? If you think the staff should depend on the permit, can you put staff in the chat? I think it's probably okay to recruit the staff because we can always fire them again. Although it's not very good, is it?
Very sorry to interrupt. We seem to have a raised hand from Miss Natalia Kulagina.
Yeah. Okay. In that case, do you want to unmute and say something? Oh,
yeah. Hello, everyone. Yeah. So I just started to typing in our comment chat. Well, I just wanted to add that I've seen a lot of cases when recruiting local manager comes first, even before identifying suitable country. Ooh. Because, well, especially in our business, and then you let the person hire local staff and do whatever they want in create their own scenario. Sometimes it works like that.
You could get a kind of a Central European manager and say, you choose which country is best. Because choosing the country is an important choice. Although it's difficult to know which way around because they probably head office would I think would choose the country and then get a manager in that country. I like the idea of getting the manager really early. Quite often when I do this, they get the manager, here. But I definitely think there is an arrow from the permit to buying the site. I think I wouldn't buy the site until I'd got the permit. And maybe the staff as well. I'll tell you what, several people want to move the staff, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to make the staff come after the permit instead of the manager, like that. And you could see, we would have this debate if there was a group of maybe 6 of us instead of how many we've got here, 70. We could just sit and chat and argue until we're happy. But let's say that we're now happy. I'm just going to move that downwards a bit. I wonder if that'll work. Yes. Oh, yes. Am I a PowerPoint god? What do you think? I'm hoping you're looking at this thinking I could do that. So we now have got a project plan. And thank you for your patience, everybody, because that took about 10 minutes. But I think you can see that we now have a plan for this project. And it wasn't too difficult, was it? And we could still debate some of the positions, but let's assume that we're happy with that the way it is now. We now have a plan. So my next question for you is, how long will this take? How many weeks? These are weeks. Could you just put in the chat how many weeks you think this project will take? And I'm going to quickly work it out myself as well, because I don't know. So I know what 4 plus 9 is. That's 13. But after that, ooh. Yeah, okay, I think it's going to be that. Okay, I think I've worked the answer out. I don't think it's 32 and I don't think it's 38, but I could be wrong. I'm really hoping somebody comes up with the answer I've got. Oh, Federica thinks it's going to take a year. I'm glad all your answers are different because it shows that I think I can show you something really good, something really useful in a minute. I'll just give you a few more minutes. I think one person has got it right so far. But would some more people like to put some numbers and see what you think? Oh, Jan and Colin both think 36. So does Peter. Yeah, quite a few people are putting 36 now. Franco's put 38. Well, Lilia says it depends on the country. Now, I've assumed it's 8 weeks for the permit, but of course that does vary hugely. And you're quite right, because once we've chosen the country, this number might then change. But at least we've got a plan, and at least if something changes, we know. Okay, so I think the right answer is 36. And let me explain why. We need to find the longest route through this path, through, the longest path through this diagram. And obviously this one here is going to be, I'm just going to get my menu. How do I get my menu? Oh yeah. So if I just click on that, I'm going to pin it and make it red. This will be quicker once I get it going red. So the longest path goes here, but then where does the longest path go? And I think given the choice of the 8 or the 4, it's going to go through the 8. It doesn't always go to the biggest number because sometimes, if there was like a 30 down here, then it would obviously go through the 4 on its way to the 30. But there's not a lot down here. And if we're going to go through these, we want to go through the 8 for the longest path. So I think there's no doubt in my mind the longest path is here. And then after that, it could go through the 8, it could go through the 6. But if it goes through the 2 6s and a 3, that is the longest path, I think. I'm just going to make all of those red. So I think that is the longest path. And this is how we draw it. We always draw the longest path in red. So let's just check that any of these black ones aren't longer. I mean, clearly these two are not as long as the 6 6 3. The 4 is not as long as the 8, and the 1 and 4 are not as long as the 6 6. So yeah, so this is the longest path. And I'm pretty sure this path here adds up to 36. So we now know this project is going to take 36 weeks. And this path is known as the critical path. If I just copy, I'm just going to write a couple of things on here for you. So this is known as the critical path. And in the old days, this would be called the time critical path. But because project managers talk about this stuff all the time, they have shortened it to critical path. So when they're talking about critical path, they're only talking about time. Okay. And these are known as the critical tasks, these ones here. So purchasing the site is a critical task because it's on the time path, whereas finding the site is not a critical task. And all we mean by that is that this one is on the slowest path. This one is not on the slowest path. So this one could take 5 or 6 or 7, it wouldn't matter. Whereas if this one goes from 6 to 7, the whole project takes a week longer. Okay, so any extra time on the critical tasks means the whole project takes longer. Whereas extra time on the non-critical tasks does not affect the project. So the critical path is 36 weeks. So it's really important to understand that a critical task is not expensive or difficult or skillful or risky. It's none of those things. It's just slow. Okay, it's on the slowest path. So installing the furniture is quite a quick task, but it happens to be on the slowest path. So installing the furniture is a critical task. If that takes 4 weeks instead of 3, we deliver late. Whereas recruiting the staff is not a critical task. And that's quite counterintuitive, isn't it? And, you know, when I first showed you this list, if I'd said, what are the critical tasks here? You'd have said, get the permit, get the manager, you know, get the staff maybe. You'd never have thought that installing furniture was a critical task. But actually, it is. Because if that takes longer, we're going to take longer. And if that estimate of 3 is wrong, then the estimate we're giving to our customer, which is our be ready in 36 weeks, our estimate will be wrong. So we want to make sure that our estimates of these critical tasks are correct. And the estimates of the others don't really matter. You know, if the staff take 10 weeks or 12 weeks, we don't care. Obviously, if they take 20, it would be a problem. But if this 8 becomes 9, 10, 11, 12, we don't care. Because we've got 6, 6, and 3 here. So we've got 15 weeks going on in parallel with this. This can go all the way up to 15 before it matters. I hope everyone's okay with that. So that's the concept of the critical path in a project. And what I want to say is you can never guess what it is. You just don't know till you draw this diagram. Okay. So if we hadn't put that arrow in there, by the way, if that wasn't there, we'd have a totally different critical path. I think it would go, yeah, it would actually go through finding a site. It would go there, wouldn't it? And it wouldn't go, the permit would not be on the critical path, I think, because this is 16 and this is 12, 13, 14, yeah, this is longer. So the critical path would have gone here and the permit would not be critical. But because we've decided to do this, and I think it's a good decision by us, it's meant that the permit is a critical task. Okay, so there's nothing intrinsic in a task that makes it critical. You have to draw the diagram to find out what's critical. Okay, so transporting your huge heavy item might be on the critical path and it might not. You know, it might be you've got plenty of time to build it and transport it because preparing the site takes longer or something. You just don't know till you draw the diagram. It's obviously really important to get it right. It's very difficult and very skillful, but it may not be on the time critical path. So, okay, so that's the diagram I wanted to show you and the process of building it I wanted to show you. And normally you would do that with about perhaps 3 or 4 people and you would discuss where the post-it notes go. And you can do it with real post-its or you can do it with virtual post-its like this, whichever you prefer. And it takes 20 minutes and it's almost fun. I mean, maybe there's something wrong with me, but I actually find it fun doing these diagrams. I like it. So I can see Ragan going, yeah, I love it too. So that's the thing. So some people are frightened of these diagrams, but you really shouldn't be. Right. Now, once you've added up the length of your critical path, you might want to put a bit of safety margin in. And Rajesh he thinks it's 36 plus 2 weeks for Christmas and New Year holidays. He's absolutely right about that. I'm going to come to holidays in a minute because this diagram assumes no holidays. It also assumes that you've got unlimited resources. Because, you know, we're going to be, for example, finding a site and getting the permit at the same time. Now, it may be we can't do both of those at the same time. But this diagram assumes infinite resources. Later on, when we get to the Gantt chart, we'll look at resources. But at the moment, we're assuming we've got infinite resources. But now is the time to think about safety margin. And you might want to add a little bit of a safety margin to this. And what you do is you look at the critical path and you think, how likely is it that we're going to get a problem? So choosing the country, that's relatively straightforward. I think we can do that in 4 weeks. Recruiting a manager in 9 weeks, I mean, there's a little bit of risk there, isn't there? That might take longer, but we can probably find somebody good in that time. The permit, I think, is highly risky. You know, 8 weeks to get the permit, who knows? You know, some bureaucrat may decide it's going to take longer. I want to put a safety margin in for that. Buying the site, there is a risk, isn't it, that lawyers are going to get involved and find things wrong with it. And I would put a safety margin on that as well, personally. And then modifying the buildings, always there are problems when builders get in. 6 weeks is reasonably long time, but I think it could take longer than 6 weeks to get the building ready. I think we can definitely do the furniture in 3 weeks. So I think we've got several quite risky things in the middle here. And I would want to put in some extra safety margin. So, suppose we decide to put 6 weeks of safety margin in. What we would do, we wouldn't put a lump here called 6 weeks of safety margin, because if we do that, our boss will take it out again, or our customer won't like to see it. So what we do is we hide the 6 along here. We maybe just add 1 week to each of these, so that then the customer's happy and we've got a safety margin. And I just want to say, there's nothing dishonest about putting the safety margin in. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for the customer, because we want to give the customer a reliable estimate. So if we think there's potentially 6 weeks of problems, we want to quote them 42, not 36, because we want to give the customer a reliable date. Okay, so there's nothing dishonest about putting a safety margin in there. The only thing is that customers worry about safety margins, and it's best not to tell them. Just put it in there, just hide it in there, and then we're looking after them without them having to worry. Okay, so that's what you do. So let's assume there's already a safety margin in here. I just want to very briefly mention speeding it up before we get on to part 2 of this talk, which is Gantt charts. So let's suppose we had to do this quicker. Suppose we had to do it in 30. Our boss says 36. You can't have that long. I need it in 30. We must have it in 30 weeks. What do we do? And the answer is, really, there are 3 ways you can speed a project up. And the first one is you can put the money up. So, and that often that means more people. But it could just mean paying extra money. So, for example, we could pay extra for the fast track permit. I'm not going to say bribery, because that's bad. But you could perhaps pay for a fast track and get your permit through quicker than 8. That would be an example of money up. Or modifying the buildings. We could do that quicker because we could work overtime, we could work weekends, we could have extra people working on it, and we could probably get that quick. It will cost more, but we could get it speeded up. So that's one option, money up. By the way, if I could get the permit down from 8 to 1, suppose I pay some fast track money and the permit is done in 1 week. Can you put in the chat, how many weeks would I save? I'm just going to put the question. How many weeks would I save if I pay money to have this 8 made to only 1? And Marilla's right on it. Now, I'm pretty sure the answer is 4, because although I'm saving 7 weeks on this, I would then have a new longest path going through here, wouldn't I? So my new longest path, there's no point in the 8 going below 4. Anything lower than, if I pay extra money to go below 4, I'm wasting my money, aren't I? Because I'm going to have to wait for this. So sometimes when you speed things up, you don't get the full saving. We would only save 4 weeks. Now, would it be worth paying the extra money to only save 4 weeks? I don't know. You'd have to choose in real life. That would be your choice. Okay. So when you speed up the red path, you always want to just keep an eye on the black path just in case. So we've got money up. That's one option. Another option we've got is quality down. Now, I don't like this option. And most of you here are from engineering companies. And I started out life as an engineer as well. I wasn't a very good one. I went into management because I wasn't a very good engineer. But I still have a sort of obsession with quality. And you may not think it looking at my slides I'm showing you, but I really don't like reducing quality on a project. I just think it's never a good idea. It's always going to come back and give you problems later, but you can reduce the scope. So I mentioned earlier on, if you can't build the hospital quick enough, you could say, well, look, let's not do the car park. So we'll do the hospital, but not the car park. So we're not going to have anything wrong with the doctors. The hospital will be fine, but we're kind of reducing the scope of what they're going to get. So, you know, that is an option, reducing the quality. And in my example, you know, maybe when we modify the buildings, we just think, well, we're not going to make the lovely fancy front door we were going to have because we haven't got time, perhaps, you know. Or maybe when we recruit the manager, we'll just take the first person who comes in through the door. But I think that's a bad idea, you know. Or identifying the country, maybe we could just throw a dart at a map. But I think that would be a bad idea. So generally, I'm not keen on reducing quality, but you can. There's one more option, which is to overlap. So, you know, maybe we could open while we're still installing the furniture. You know, maybe we can have the front desk with a receptionist saying, hi, everybody. And behind in the background, we can still be, you know, switching on some of the computers and things. Maybe we can install the furniture while we're still modifying the buildings, because we don't have to have the whole thing finished before we install any furniture. So we could sort of, when each bit is ready, we could install the furniture, couldn't we? Could we modify the buildings while we're buying the site? Now, I actually think, yes, we could. Because if you think about what modify buildings really consists of, I think it consists of architect planning, and then maybe getting planning permission, and then demolishing and rebuilding stuff. So I think modify buildings really divides into three things. And when we're buying, this is the purchasing of the site. I don't know if you can see that. I hope you can. By the way, if you want to make me bigger or smaller, I think you can pull a little slider across. I don't know if that works, but I think while we're buying the site, we could be getting architects' plans done and getting planning permission. Personally, I wouldn't want to demolish anything until I bought the site. But you can see we can partially overlap if we divide this down a little bit. So I think we probably can overlap purchasing and modifying if we want. I mean, we might save a month. Can we overlap purchasing with the permit? Well, we could start the paperwork on buying the site, but maybe not actually exchange contracts until the permit comes in. And then could we apply for the permit while we're still waiting for the manager to arrive? Yeah, maybe, if we want to run a bit of a risk. Could we recruit a manager while we're still choosing our country? And the answer is yes. If we know that it's going to be one of, let's say, 3 countries, we could start looking for managers in all 3 countries. We could get some headhunters, some recruitment agents going in all 3 countries. And then once we choose our country, we could just bin 2 of the headhunters and waste the time of some recruitment agencies. Is that a crime? Not really. So we could overlap almost everything. And I think you'll agree that, you know, if we can overlap a whole load of tasks, that's much quicker than doing them one after another. So overlapping is an option. So by money up or quality down or overlapping, we can speed this time up if we want. And those are the kind of things we would think about. Anyway, let's assume that this is our plan and that our boss is happy with it. Or let's assume that we've already speeded some of these up. Perhaps the buildings have been speeded up. We're going to work weekends. I want to go on to part 2 of this talk now, which is Gantt charts. Okay. So just to show you, just going back to my 12 steps, we've planned the running order with Post-its, got some times on there and found the longest path. We could put in a safety margin. We could consider speeding up the plan. It's known as crashing. And that's money up, quality down, and overlapping. But the next bit I want to show you, and really that I think what I just showed you actually is the heart of the project plan. That is when you actually decide, how should we do this job? But we need to make it into a Gantt chart. That's the next thing we're going to do. By the way, I'll email you this afterwards. Or you could take a screenshot as well if you want. But I want to tell you about Gantt charts now, because they are really the best part of project management. But the one thing I want you to get from this talk is you can't do a Gantt chart without doing the Post-its first, right? You must always do the Post-its, never go straight to the Gantt chart. People do all the time. People go straight to a Gantt chart, but I want to show you why that is wrong. Okay, so I'm going to show you a Gantt chart now. I'm going to make a Gantt chart for you. And I'm going to use Excel for this. Can you see my Excel sheet creeping in on the side there? Hopefully you can. So it's going to be a little bit crowded on the screen, but it's going to be okay. So if I just make that a bit smaller up there, hopefully you can still see that diagram. And I'm going to bring in this. So I'm going to make our project into a Gantt chart while you're watching. I want to show you the process. Now I'm going to use Excel. You can use Microsoft Project if you want, or, you know, Team Gantt or anything else you want. It's the same, really. But I like Excel because Excel is free and everybody's got Excel. We all know how to use Excel. I actually don't like Microsoft Project because it argues with me. Microsoft Project it's got a life of its own. In fact, can I do a little survey a minute? I'm going to stop sharing so I can see you all. People who I can see, can you just put your hand up if you've used Microsoft Project? Or have you seen Microsoft Project? Can I just see who has seen it? Not very many. Okay, and who has used it? It's just going to be me and Ragan, isn't it? And who likes it? And that's when all the hands go down. Yeah. So I'm going to go back to sharing again now. Yeah, I've not found many people who like Microsoft Project, and that's because it has a life of its own and it argues. It's got a very small brain and it argues using its small brain, and it's really irritating. So
sorry to interrupt you, Chris.
That's all right.
We use here in Brazil, there is an open source software called Project Libre, which is similar to Microsoft Project, but it's for free, open source, and it's a little bit easier to work with.
That sounds good.
You can learn on YouTube and
so you could use Project Libre for this. I want to show you, and whatever you use, actually, it's just a drawing tool. And in fact, people quite often ask me, what software should I use to run my project? And my answer is, it doesn't really matter. Because if you think about this, there is no software that will tell you what your project is, of course. That's a discussion you have with your boss and your customer. There's no software that will list all the tasks for you. There's no software that will tell you what comes after what. And there's no software that will estimate the times. I mean, I would love it if there was some software that said, oh no, that won't take 5 weeks, it'll take 7 weeks. But there is no software that can do that. So really, the software comes in here, and it's just a drawing tool. Whatever you want to use as a convenient drawing tool is what we're doing. So the software doesn't matter too much, but I'll use Excel for this demo. So the first thing you put in is the critical path. So this is identifying the country. I'm going to show this absolutely from scratch on here. I'll make the font slightly bigger, although I'm hoping you can probably read it. Hopefully you can see that fairly clearly on your screen. So it's identify country, then we decided we would get the manager, then we're going to get the permit. So what I do is I just follow this red path. Okay, I ignore everything else. However complicated it is, this part is easy because I just follow this red path. So I get the permit, then I'm going to purchase the site, then I'm going to modify the buildings, then I'm going to install the furniture. So that is my critical path. In fact, I'm going to make those red just so that you can really see that that's the critical path. Okay, then I'll put the floating tasks in, the other tasks. So I'm going to put in the staff, I'm going to put in advertise, I'm going to put in finding the site, and then I'm going to put find local supplier of furniture and purchase furniture. Okay, so I've done this completely from scratch because I want you to see the whole process and see how easy it is, how quick it is. And I think a lot of people, when they think about project management, they think it's going to be really complicated and there's lots of maths and take a lot of time and, oh, I don't want to get involved. But I want to show you it's so quick and easy. Why would you not? I mean, I hope you already agree. Why would you not do this diagram? You know, because this is when you decide, how do we do the project? And to just start and think, right, let's buy a site. Then you're going to think, oh, I wish we'd got a manager first. You know, you'd be mad to just start doing things without just spending 15 minutes just thinking about the running order, wouldn't you? You'd be mad. I'll just make that one a bit more, yeah, fit that one on there like that. So let me try to get as much space as we can to show you. Okay. So I want you to see this and think, yeah, that's really easy. I'm going to do this from now on. So I've got my tasks down here. Across the top, I'm going to have the weeks. And we decided it was going to be 36 weeks because we didn't speed it up to 30 in the end. We could have, but we'll have 36 weeks. Okay. And you probably know on here that if you just select these two, I'm just going to get the whole thing on. If you just select these two, you can drag the little dot and it puts them in automatically. You probably knew that. So let's just go all the way up to 36. Oh, hang on. 36. Right. Now, obviously, it doesn't fit on, which is annoying. It doesn't fit on. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that column. I'm going to go all the way back across. And I'm going to hold the shift key down and select that. So it selects everything. And then if I bring in one of them, they all come in the same amount. So I can make it a bit smaller like this. Oh, yes. And I'm going to center it as well, just because I'm fussy. Right. So that's looking a bit better now, isn't it? So I've got my 36 weeks on there. And now I want to put in the bars of when I'm going to be doing these tasks. I'm just going to save this, by the way. Lift Gantt. Right. By the way, after this talk, I will send you a copy of this and I'll send you a copy of this. So you'll have both. I mean, feel free to take screenshots as we go along, but I'll send you both of these and this. So the one thing I'm going to do that's a little bit fancy, I'm going to select this area here and I'm going to use conditional formatting. I don't know, have you seen conditional formatting? And I'm going to say, now this would be different if you're using Gantt Libra or Project Libra, but in Excel, what you do is you go conditional formatting and you just say highlight cells greater than. And I'm going to say if it's greater than 0, color it in. Okay. Now, normally when you use conditional formatting, you say if it's bigger than €1,000,000, color it in red or something like that. But I've said if it's greater than 0. So that means everything I do will be colored in. So the country is going to be 4 weeks. So I'm just going to put 4 ones in there. And you can see it's coloring in automatically. It just saves me a bit of time. So the manager is 9 weeks. Like that. The permit is 8 weeks. By the way, every now and then people email me and they say, Chris, you could set up a macro where you could just type in 8 and it would automatically color in 8 squares. And the answer is, I know that, but I don't care. Because I don't want to make this clever, because the more clever I make this, the fewer people will use it, you know? So I just want to keep it really simple. I have to press the button 8 times. I don't mind, you know? So just want to keep it really, really simple. Anyway, then we go to purchasing the site, which is 6. Okay, can you see I'm just doing these numbers here? Then modifying the buildings is another 6. And then finally, we've got installing the furniture, which was 3, and open for business is 0. I'll put it underneath so you can see it all for the moment. So that one's 3, and then install, and then open. Oh, I forgot open. Hang on, I'm just going to insert a row here, open. Right, so how am I going to put open in? Because it's 0. So what 0 looks like really is just a line. It's just this, isn't it? Because, you know, it's got no duration. But the trouble is, you can't really even see that, can you? I want to make this properly visible. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make it thicker as well. I'm going to go for line color, no, line style. I'm going to get a nice thick line. And I'm going to put it all the way down like this. Okay, so that's my finish line. Save. And I want to show that this line belongs to opening. And the way you do that is you go insert illustrations, shapes, and you just get a diamond shape and you put it on here like that. Just get it neatly lined up. So what this diamond means is if you're looking at this, you're thinking, well, what is this event? And the answer is you click on the diamond and you can see it means opening. Or when do we open? When do we open? When do we open? Oh, here's where we open. So if you wanted to have more events, you can have an event here which says, you know, the manager arrives. And then here you could have an event. We've got the permit. And you can have as many events as you like. They're just vertical lines. Okay, so one of the problems with the post-its is they don't have milestones, because those are events which have no duration. But it's okay, because once you get to the Gantt chart, you have your milestones. So on my plan, I've just got the one milestone, which is open. Okay, that's how you do milestones. So that's my critical path coming down in steps like that. And I think you'll agree that was really easy, because all I did was I just followed the path through here. So that's very quick and easy. And that's the most important part of the whole thing, because this tells us how long the project's going to take. And you can see all of these are locked in. They can't move. Within that 36 weeks, they are just wedged in. But we've got some extra other tasks to do, what we call floating tasks. So let's have a look at those. And my first one I'm going to put in is the staff. So what we always do, we always say, what does it come after? And what must it be done before? Okay, what does it come after? It comes after the permit. What must it be done before? Opening. So the staff, which are here, they come after the permit. This is the permit here. So you can see the staff must come after this point here. We can't do it earlier than that because we have to wait for the permit. We decided that. And they have to be somewhere between the permit and opening. And they're an 8. Now, do you think, I'm going to ask you in the chat again here, do you think we should get the staff as early as we can or late as we can? So just put an E or an L. Shall I get the staff as soon as possible, or shall I get them as late as possible? E or L? What do you reckon? Got a couple of votes for L already there. Got 3 votes for L. Ooh, got 1 vote for E. So when you put the floating tasks in, you've always got a choice of where do I put it in here? Now, I'm actually going to get the staff as late as possible. Sorry, Nilesh. Like that. By the way, I want these colored in. So I'm going to go back into my conditional formatting, back to here. It's just on the home ribbon, conditional formatting, highlight cells greater than. If it's greater than 0, and I'm going to go for a different color. I'm going to go for green for the movable tasks. Okay, so I've gone for them late. I've gone for 1 week of safety margin, 1 week of maybe training when the staff arrive. Probably should do some training, but I've got them as late as possible. Now, you could argue it's safer to get them earlier, and it is safer to get them earlier, but they're costing me money, aren't they? From the day they arrive, this is interviewing and stuff, but from the day they arrive, they're costing me quite a lot of money, and I don't want to get them earlier than I need to. So I think get them late. But Natalia's right, it depends, because there might be cases where you want to get them in nice and early, so you've definitely got them. So, and I'm going to just insert illustrations shapes. I'm just going to get an arrow and draw the arrow on there. If you hold the shift key down, by the way, it makes the arrow exactly flat, which I do like because I am fussy. A little arrow there as well. So I've got my staff in there. Okay, that was good. Now I'm going to do the advertising. Now the advertising also comes after the permit and before we open. If I'd planned ahead, I could have done that in one go. So advertising. Now, what do you think? Do you think I should do the advertising earlier or later? I actually think I'm going to advertise right up until the opening day, because I just think if I advertise earlier, people are going to want to buy the product and it's not going to be ready. But I could do a little bit here saying coming soon, and then I could do a bit more saying we are now ready. But, to keep it simple, I'm going to do that. And I'm just going to copy that arrow because it's quicker. Stick that there. So what this arrow means is anytime after here, we could start on the staff. Anytime after here, we could start advertising if we wanted. But we're actually going to advertise from here. Right, we've got 3 more tasks to put in, and then we've done the Gantt chart. Well, I want to show you a few more little fancy things to do with the Gantt chart. So let's put in, we're going to put in finding the site next, aren't we? So finding the site, we always ask, what does it come after? And it comes after the manager. So here's the manager. So it comes anytime after here, we can look for the site. all right? Anytime after there, once we got the manager. And we have to have the site done before we buy it. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? And purchasing the site is here. So there's actually a line coming down here. And we have to have found the site before this point, because this is when we need to start buying the site. All right. So if this takes longer than here, we're going to be late. And it's a real crime if a floating task pushes the critical path late, because that should not have happened. So finding the site, I'm going to get it as early as I can, like this. So I'm going to give myself 4 weeks safety margin. So I'm definitely going to have the site found before I want to start buying it. Now, another question for you in the chat. Is there any snag with finding the site a month before I buy it? I'm just going to put site so we know where we are. Can anybody put a comment in about why that might be a problem? Because actually, you know, I think I might change my mind. I think I might move it to here. But why would I do that? Anybody want to put a comment about why I might do that? Yeah, Juan's right. Might lose it. Yeah, there is a risk. If I find my perfect site, I have to wait, because I've got to wait a month till I've got the permit before I can start buying it. And that's going to be a horribly anxious month, hoping nobody else buys it. So I think 2 weeks is enough safety margin, but not too much. So I'm actually going to put it there. But, you know, that's just a sort of a judgment thing about that, isn't it? So these are the kind of things you would think about when you're putting in your floating tasks. So I'm going to put in the arrows. Copy that little one there. It's just quicker than going back into the menu. So basically that task is floating in that range, and I'm going to leave it for 2 weeks. Then I'm going to do it. And I've got 2 weeks of safety margin at the other end there. That should be okay. But I really don't want this to run late and then end up pushing the whole critical path late. I mean, that would be bad. Okay, now I'm going to put in finding the suppliers of furniture next. So what does it come after? It comes after finding the site. So it basically comes after there. So what we've got a couple of floating tasks which hang off a floating task. Not a problem. It just means that this line can move a bit, but that's okay. They come after that. We find the site, then we look for the furniture. Now, what does it come before? Well, it comes before the purchasing, and the purchasing is not on here yet, is it? So I've got to do both of these before I install the furniture. So installing the furniture is this one, isn't it? So somewhere before here, I've got a line crossing over, which is a little bit annoying, but that's okay. I'm just going to draw it like this. So somewhere in between this line and this line, I need to find the suppliers and buy the furniture, because then it's ready for the installing there. Okay. And I've got to put them both in as well. So they're going to be a 1 and a 4. Now, again, you know, do I want to buy the furniture ages before I install it? Because where's it going to be? Is it going to be sitting in the car park? You know, where am I going to put it? So I actually think I'm going to move it a bit later. I'm still going to have a 2-week safety margin. I think I can find the supplier nice and early, but then not actually buy it till here. So that's my plan, okay? And you can choose, you know, where you want to put the floaters, but they have to be within that range. So these 2 floaters, we're putting them in as a pair. They have to be after we've found the site, and they have to be before we install the furniture. And I'm just going to put a little connector in. So I'm just going to go insert illustrations, shapes, and then get my favorite connector, which is that one. Oh, I do love that one. Is there something wrong with me? I don't know, but I do love that particular connector. So what with that and the diamond on there, I mean, this is looking pretty nice now. Look at that Gantt chart, folks. Save. So those last 2 tasks I put in, they had a couple of unique things going on. One was they hang off a floating task. The other one is they share the float. So you can see if finding a local supplier turned out to take ages, This one would start to say, hang on a minute, you're pushing me later. And this one would have to then be here. And you might end up, not having much float left because they're sharing this float, aren't they? But that's fine, things that can happen. So if you understand the idea of sharing float and you understand the idea of floaters that hang off floaters, you can then cope with any Gantt chart. You could draw the biggest Gantt chart in the world just doing this. You just start with the critical path and then everything else hangs off it. And you just keep building it up, just adding those tasks. Now, this one here is being done sooner than these, but it was lower down. I could have put this one in higher up if I'd wanted, but the height doesn't matter because time is going across. So the height doesn't matter. You just keep putting your floating tasks in until you got them all on there. Okay, so that's how you do it. Always put the verticals. So then we know how much floating range we've got. You can see this one hasn't got very much. These ones have got quite a lot. So always put the verticals, put the floaters in, job done. Now, I mentioned just then the biggest Gantt chart in the world, but I would recommend not having more than about 25 tasks on your Gantt chart. And you're probably thinking, yeah, but I've got a project with 300 tasks. So how are you going to cope with that? And the answer is I would have a sub-plan for that. So for example, in my network diagram, modify the buildings has probably got a whole load of tasks. It may have 30 tasks, but I don't really care what they are. As long as they add up to 6 weeks, I can put 6 weeks in here. And then on my Gantt chart, modify buildings can be 6 weeks. Okay, now somewhere behind this on another sheet, I can have a sub Gantt, sorry, excuse me, of what's actually happening during that. I can have a sub Gantt, but as long as it adds up to 6, I'm happy. So I want to have a high level post-it note diagram and a high level Gantt chart like this, maximum 25 tasks, because then I can see it, I can feel it. And then behind that, I may have a more detailed post-it note diagram. I may have a more detailed Gantt chart, which I don't have to worry about until I get there. Now, when I get to modifying the building, I can say, right, let me have a look at your sub Gantt. Let me have a look at your detailed Gantt, and I can micromanage and I can make sure they get the job done in 6 weeks. I can make sure they don't do nothing for the first 3 weeks. So I would say if you've got 20 tasks on here or on here, behind each one, you could have another 20. So you could manage 400 tasks by doing this, by having a sub plan. But what I don't want is a massively complicated Gantt chart with 400 tasks on, because then I can't see it anymore. I can't feel it. And there is a risk that the computer will do something stupid and will come up with something that's just not realistic. And my plan will actually be wrong and I won't know. So I like to keep it simple and have subsections. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes left. And there might be a couple of questions, but I just want to add a little bit more to my Gantt chart and then we've finished, okay? So just going back to this, you can see that we've been drawing the Gantt chart, but I want to say a bit about resources and monitoring progress, because there are actually 3 reasons why you need a Gantt chart. And the first reason why you need a Gantt chart, I'm going to write it here, is communication. Because the best way to communicate your plan is with a Gantt chart, because most people can't really cope with this. They go, oh, what does it mean? Whereas this, it's really good for showing people the plan. Particularly, you can put actual dates in here. So if I just insert a line here. So suppose we were going to start this project on the, I don't know, the 1st of October, say. I can just put that in there. Now that means there isn't enough space, but that's okay, because I can just right click and go format cells, alignment, vertical. So we've got the 1st of October. So the week after is going to be the 8th of October. And then what I can do is I can just drag this little dot. So you can see I've now got dates all the way across of what's going to happen when. And I can immediately see that, we're going to be looking for a site in January. Now, that might be a problem because it might be under 20 feet of snow in the country we're going to. I don't know. So I can see what's happening. We're recruiting staff in April, that's probably fine. We're going to be modifying the building in April, hopefully the weather will be okay, etc. I can also put in Christmas holiday, somebody mentioned earlier on. I can suppose this is Christmas week here. I can just insert a column and that's Christmas. So I can color that in a nice Christmas color. I don't know what color Christmas would be. Should we call it green? I don't know. Oh, sorry, it didn't do it. I want this one, green. So let's say that's the Christmas break there. Now I need to just repair my dates, don't I? So I just need to go, because that's the 24th now. So we're not going to finish on the 3rd of June. We're going to finish on the 10th of June now. And similarly, my week numbers, that's number 13 there. We're actually going to take 37 weeks now because of Christmas. So things like Christmas are not on this diagram, but we add them when we get to the Gantt chart. Okay. And so that's fine. In fact, I'm just going to put XMAS on there like that. Oh, it's colored it in as well. Didn't expect that. Right, I'm just going to do this. Right, so I've got my Christmas thing there, and the colors I'm not entirely happy with, but still it'll do. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I might insert another column here. What do you think I'm going to put in here? I could put the name of who's doing the job here. So I could give this one to Murillo. I could give this one to Alessio. I'm looking for people with short names. Everybody's got long names. Give that one to Mladen, etc. And in fact, Mladen's a really good guy, so I'm just going to give him everything else to do. Situation normal, probably Mladen, I'd guess. And then I might think, actually, Mladen's a bit too busy. I'm going to give this to Colin or whatever. Okay, so you can put who's doing it in there, and I'm going to just make that dark colored and non-bold and a bit smaller. That's just taking up too much space. Right, so you can have a column with the name of the person who's doing it, which I think you'll agree is good. The next thing I'm going to do to make my Gantt chart a little bit more fancy is I'm going to add up this column. And so I'm just going to go to this one here, click on that, and it adds it up. Now, you don't have to be brilliant to see that that column adds up to 1. But what you can then do is you can copy it across like this. And you can see it's telling me now, I'm not doing anything in Christmas week, but you can see I've got 4 things at once happening here. So this is where we start to think about resources. Can I do all 4 of those? You know, can I modify the building, recruit staff, advertise, and buy the furniture? Now, if I can't, what can I do? And of course, one option would be I could move these to here so that this and this are not overlapping anymore. So I could do that, for example. I'm just going to undo that again, actually. I don't want to mess it up. But, you know, I could move the floating tasks. That's one option. Another option I've got is to get more people, because I know next May I'm going to be really busy. And isn't it nice to know a long time in advance that you're going to be busy? Because if you don't have this, you'll just be doing the project and suddenly you'll be going, oh my God, we're really busy. And we want to know nice and early that we're busy and that we need to recruit get some people ready. So it's useful to know that, and we can maybe move the floating tasks a bit so they don't overlap. So I can look at my resources, and even better than just counting the number of tasks, we could actually put the hours required in there. So I might decide it's going to take me 5 hours a week to decide on the country. Yeah, maybe recruiting the manager. I've got to write the advert, wait for a week, go through all the CVs, and then wait for a week, and then do a load of interviewing. That's quite a lot, 15 hours a week for 3 weeks, and then wait for the manager who's probably going to start in January, something like that. Now, you can see it doesn't color in if I put a 0. It's a bit annoying, but if you put an O, it does color in. So I like to put an O in there just so that it still colors in the whole block. Okay, so you could put your estimates of hours along here, and I won't do them all, but let's just suppose that modifying the building takes me 12 hours a week. And in fact, it goes up to 16 hours a week for the last 3 weeks. And recruiting the staff, let's just say that's going to be 2 and 5, and then some interviewing, 15. And then after that, just waiting for the staff notice period. And I'm going to put one more in here. I'm going to have buying the furniture. So I have to spend a couple of weeks quite busy, and then I just wait for the furniture to arrive. So you can see now that along here, I've got a resource profile of how many hours I need to spend on my project, or my team is spending. I can even put a graph in if I want. So I can actually go to insert graph, and I can just get rid of the title, and I can put this, hang on, I can just put this down here if I want. And I quite like to pull the graph out so that it's the same size. It's a little bit fiddly. It's much harder to do when you've got 100 people watching you. But there we are. So now I've got that graph, and I can see when I'm busy and when I'm not. And if finding the site is going to take me, 22 hours a week, as soon as I put it in, you can see, it appears. So I've now got a resource profile for my project, which is really nice to have. Now, you might get that automatically from the software you have, but you can see that with Excel, it's very easy to do. And there's one more thing I can do that I think is really good, which is that if I overshoot this by 1, you can use it, you can go horizontally with this as well. So you can see I'm going to be taking a total of 330 hours on here. And if I copy this up here, I need to just get rid of the zeros because I'm fussy for these empty rows. By the way, the only reason I've got empty rows is I don't like these to be touching. I mean, I don't know, it's just fussy. I don't like them to be touching. It's like you don't like your baked beans to touch your potato, do you? You've got to have a sausage in between, don't you think? So, but it just is neater, I think, like that. But you can see I've got 330 hours. I can see when I'm using my hours, but I can also see what I'm using my hours on. So I can see on here immediately, I'm taking 84 hours to modify the building. Is that right? I can ask myself. I can think about all of that. I'm taking 52 hours to recruit the staff. Maybe it's cheaper to employ a headhunter to do that for me. And finding the site, 88 hours. Would it be cheaper? If I'm £100 an hour, that's going to cost me nearly 9 grand to get a site. Maybe it's cheaper to employ an estate agent and do that sort of thing. So I can see the cost. And in fact, what you can also do, if I just name this hours, or I'm going to call this time. I could make a copy of this whole spreadsheet. If I go move or copy, move to the end, create a copy. On this second one, I can call this money. I'm just going to rename it. Hang on, rename money. Okay, so I've got 2 identical spreadsheets, but what I could do, I could go through this one and I could put the money on instead. I won't go into the detail because we don't need to, but you could see, imagine if buying the furniture, I'm going to spend £120 on my furniture. And let's just put a couple of others. Maybe the permit, I have to pay £150 up front and another 130 when I get it. And let's say, I don't know, advertising. I'm going to spend £88 a week advertising. You can see that immediately it tells me I'm spending £12.45 on my project. That's when I'm spending the money. That's what I'm spending the money on. I can see everything. And my money profile is quite different to my time profile. But my Gantt chart tells me everything, which is great, isn't it? And the final thing I want to show you on the Gantt chart is coloring in. So if I hold the shift key down and select this other tab, can you see they both go white? And that means anything I put on here will be on both charts. So if I suppose it's, I don't know, suppose it's the middle of February, I can color in this just with, let's say, yellow. So that's the now line. That's where we actually are at. And then I can show progress by coloring in what I've done. So if I select these, it won't color in because I've conditionally formatted it. It actually has colored that in, by the way, because if that was a 0, it would be yellow. But I've told it if there's a 5, make it pink. So I want to color this in yellow. How do I do it? And the answer is I just put a bit of yellow over here. And then I can use the paintbrush and I can just go over it like that. And in fact, if I go to here and I double click, I can do as much coloring as I like. So I can say I've done all of that. And I've done the first 2 weeks of that, and I've done a week of that. And I can put the paintbrush back down again. So let's suppose, let's just check, by the way, can you see it's colored in both? Pretty cool. So how's my project doing? And I can immediately see that I'm not quite keeping up with the now line, am I? This moves every week. and I'm not keeping up. I'm 3 weeks behind on the critical path and a couple of weeks behind on this floating task as well. So this is a problem. I'm at the moment 3 weeks late. But, you know, maybe I can catch this up. So maybe I can do all this like this. Maybe it can overlap and then everything can still be on plan. Or maybe I can overlap these two and catch back up, or maybe I'm going to have to deliver 3 weeks late, but I can see what my options are by looking at my Gantt chart. So the Gantt chart allows me to think about my resources by adding up vertically. And it also allows me to monitor my progress by coloring in. And without a Gantt chart, you can't do any of those. You can't really communicate the plan. You can't really check how busy you're going to be in April, and you can't really monitor your progress. If you don't have a Gantt chart, what will happen is you'll say, how's the project going? And the people on the project or the project manager will just tell you stories. They'll go, oh yeah, well, you know, we've chosen the country and we've already got a manager. We've got somebody really good. Yes, look, here's a picture. And you're thinking, well, that's great. I'm glad you've got the manager, but should you have done more than that by now? I don't know. But this tells me, yes, you should have got the permit by now nearly, and you should have found the site by now. So this tells me not only what you've done, but also what you should have done. So if people are telling you stories about what they've done, you should be worried, because that doesn't tell you the whole story. It only tells you what they've done, not what they should have done. So the Gantt chart is the only way to compare what they should have done with what they've actually done. So the heart of project planning is do the post-its and make it into a Gantt chart. And do you remember I was saying you can't go straight to the Gantt chart? Because I want to ask you, do you think you could have drawn this just from my list of tasks that I gave you? And I think it would be completely impossible, because you have to know what the critical path is first. And then these other ones hang off from it, don't they? They hang off here. But you have to know the critical path. And the only way to know that is to do the post-its. So I'm saying, do the post-its. It's only 20 minutes. It's quite fun. You can involve your team. Your team will love doing it. Do the post-its first, 20 minutes, and then make it into a Gantt chart. Another 10, maybe 20 minutes. And for a really big project, you might spend an hour on the post-its, and then you might spend another hour drawing the Gantt chart. But even that's only 2 hours to plan a great big project. And that could save you thousands, tens or hundreds of thousands. So it's really quick and easy. And just keep it quite high level. You don't have to have hundreds of tasks. And even if you're using some other software, like your Project Libra, you still should have the post-its first and then put that into the Gantt chart. Always do the post-its first. That's the most important thing. And then the Gantt chart is easy. But it's the Gantt chart that you want. It's the Gantt chart that you want to use every day. Once you've got the Gantt chart, you could actually throw the post-its away. But I wouldn't. I would keep them, because future projects will probably be a similar shape. So you can just move them around, and it's useful to have, have a record of them. But really, you don't need them once you've got your Gantt chart. So there we are. That is the heart of project management. I'm going to send you this and this so that you can look at it. You'll have a video of this whole talk as well. And I'm going to send you this with my 12 steps. But you can see once you've got the Gantt chart, you can monitor your progress. You know your resources are okay. You can think about risk by looking at that. You need to keep an eye on the cost as well, of course. And then you can change your plan if you have to. It's quite easy. I mentioned that briefly just then. And then you can do your review, which you must. But the heart of this subject is the post-its and the Gantt. So there we are. That is finish time, really, isn't it? It's exactly 6:30 my time. It must be 7:30 for your time. It's probably time for you to go out and have a nice glass of something to drink. I don't know, something refreshing. I'm actually going to go and eat curry in a minute. That's my favorite food. It's actually my wife's birthday, but she's let me do this. I said it would pay for her birthday present, but actually I haven't bought her a birthday present because I haven't had time. But never mind. So at least we're going to have a nice curry. So yeah, but I don't know if anybody's got a quick question. I mean, if anybody's desperate to ask a question, feel free, but you don't need to if you don't want to. It's absolutely fine. And I will nip and order my curry. But if anybody's got a burning question, if anything didn't make sense, I hope it did make sense. Did it make sense? Did you understand it?
Yes. Yeah, Chris, thank you very much. I think it was good. As I mentioned, it looks easy, but it's important for us always to remember that we need to, to plan our projects properly. And those tools are very nice. So thank you very much for your time. And thanks for all of our members and for our customers that were present here today. You get a certificate of this training today. We'll make sure you get it later. And also the files, okay, Chris, then you can just send to Maria, and Maria
Yeah, I'll email them over straight away. It took a long time to make those diagrams, but I thought it was good to make them right in front of you so you could see the process, you know, rather than just saying this is what you do. Because to see it happen, I hope you were looking at it thinking, I could do that. I hope it looked easy, because it actually is. You must try it on a real project. You'll be amazed how easy it is. So everyone is going to we're going to take a picture of everybody now, aren't we? If you can put your camera on if you want to be photographed.
Yeah.
We've got
Andreas,
about half the
can you
people
help
with
us?
cameras on.
Andreas, can you hear us? Or Alessio is the official one, right? Alessio?
Right. If you turn on your videos, please, to take a few photographs for everyone. Okay.
It's been really great talking to you all, though. Thank you for coming. I hope it's changed your life in a small way now, because you don't have to be frightened of project management. It's easy.
Okay, I'm taking pictures right now. Give me a few seconds more to take everyone. Okay, thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was very nice.
Goodbye for now, everybody. Link to me on LinkedIn. If you want to know more, connect on LinkedIn, and I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for organizing it. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.